ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति देव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Read from the verse number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः मम यो निर्महद्ब्रह्म तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम् संभवः सर्वभूतानां ततो भवति भारत। सत्वं रजस्तम इति गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो देहे देहि देहिनमव्ययम् तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वाद् प्रकाशकमनामयम् सुखसंगेन बध्नाति ज्ञानसंगेन चानघ रजोरागात्मकं विद्धि तृष्णासंगसमुद्भवम् तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय कर्मसंगेन देहिनम् तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि मोहनं सर्वदेहिनां प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः तन्निबध्नाति भारत सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाश उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात् विवृद्धं सत्त्वमित्युत लोभः प्रवृत्तिरारम्भः कर्मणामशमस्पृहा रजस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे विवृद्धे भरतर्षभ अप्रकाशो प्रवृत्तिश्च प्रमादो मोह एव च तमस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे कुरु नन्दन. In these verses, Lord Krishna gave us an understanding of the disposition of our mind. Primarily, these three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, are discussed here with reference to the disposition of the mind. There was sattva, rajas and tamas. Each of them here is explained as a given disposition of the mind. First, Lord Krishna said, Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam. When sattva guna arises in the mind, nirmalatvat, sattvam is nirmalam, it is pure. Prakashakam, it is the nature of illumination. Anamayam, it is free from all afflictions. It is of the nature of happiness. So, sattva is most suited for reflecting the self, who is of the nature of Satchit Ananda. We gave the example of a pool of water. If this water has dirt in there, and also the surface of water is disturbed, then we cannot see anything that is at the bottom of the water. Something is there at the bottom, but that impurity, and the disturbance becomes the inhibiting factor, obstruction for us to know what it is. Then imagine that the impurity is removed. All that remains is the disturbance on the surface. Then we can have some idea of what is at the bottom. And finally, if the water is pure as well as calm, then that water body becomes transparent and we can clearly see what is at the bottom. Thus, a mind which is predominant in sattva can be compared to that clear, transparent pool of water. And just as that water enables us to clearly see what is at the bottom, so when the mind is sattvic, we can clearly experience what is the bottom, our own self, which is happiness. Thus, when the mind becomes sattvic, we feel happy without any reason. Because happiness is the nature of the self. All along we've been saying that we do not have to acquire happiness. We do not have to become happy. Because happiness is the nature of the self. It is rajas and tamas. Tamas the impurity. Rajas the disturbance. They are the obstacles or inhibiting factors which deprive us or prevent us from experiencing the true nature of ourselves. So when tamas and rajas are removed, the mind is sattvic, like the transparent, clean pool of water. We experience our own self. So happiness that we experience, the cheerfulness that we experience when the mind is sattvic, tranquil, that is the experience of our own self. Prakashakam. So sattva radiates our own self. Anamayam. It is free from all afflictions because the self is of the nature of ananda or happiness, free from all afflictions, all unhappiness or sorrow. The self is self-effulgent, and that self-effulgent self reveals itself in a sattvic mind. Meaning that when the mind becomes sattvic, you have the experience of the self. Understand that we have the experience of self all the time. Self being self-effulgent, we always have experience of the self all the time. But as long as the impurities of rajas and tamas are there in the mind, so long either the self is completely veiled from us, or the self is experienced as a wavy, restless entity. It is mind through which we experience the self. And therefore, for a true experience of self, it is important that the mind should become sattvic. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita prescribes a way of removing the tamas and rajas from our mind so that the mind becomes predominantly sattvic, pure, transparent, cheerful, placid. Understand that that is the nature of our mind. By nature, our mind is sattvic. By nature, our mind is pure. By nature, our mind reveals the self. But because of ignorance that creates a wrong perception of ourselves, a wrong perception of the world, therefore we devalue ourselves, overvalue the objects of the world. And therefore we have a natural affinity for the pleasures of the objects of the world, and therefore we live what we call an unintelligent life. What is intelligent life? When your GPS is programmed correctly and it brings you to your destination, that is the intelligent way of driving. If for whatever reason the GPS is programmed wrongly and therefore takes you to altogether a different destination, different place, it is driving unintelligently. Even though the car may be good, well tuned, filled with gasoline, and you are a good driver, meaning that all other infrastructure is there, but the right map is necessary. If you drive along the right map, the map shows the destination as well as the path. Then our life becomes intelligent way of living. Sodvanah paramapnoti, says Kathopanishad. Vijnana sarthiryastu manah pragrahavan narah sodvanah paramapnoti tad vishnoh paramam padam. When mind becomes sattvic, it is tranquil, it is contented, it is free from restlessness. Because rajas is there, mind becomes restless. It displays greed, craving, and therefore a pressure of doing one thing after the other. Restlessness. So in that mind there is no way that we can experience peace or happiness. And when the mind is tamasic, it is absolutely dull, inactive. There also there is no way that we can experience the happiness of the self. Therefore important that rajas and tamas should be removed. Then mind becomes sattvic. We said last night, when the mind is sattvic, it doesn't distort the perception. The rajas and tamas distort our perception. And therefore, we see things different from what they are. Our mind superimposes and sees happiness where it is not, sees unhappiness where it is not. When mind becomes sattvic, it sees things as they are. Therefore, it can make right decisions. It has the right discernment of life. That mind enjoying sattva understand what the destination is and what the path is. At that time we also find that when the mind enjoys the tranquility, our sense organs of perception, sense organs of action also become quiet and contented. The mind becomes free from all internal pressure of having to achieve something, having to do something. It is together as an entity, and therefore the whole personality, consisting of the mind, organs of perception, organs of action, all of this whole personality is a composed personality. In the word of Pujya Swamiji, is together as a person. The mind goes one way and eyes go another way. All of them are what we call integrated. Person is together as a person. Means that I discover that mind enjoys shama, the tranquility. Damaha, the organs of perception and action also are composed in their proper centers. Uparama, the mind has become introverted, inward looking, abiding in the self. That mind is the fit instrument to take us to our destination. Because that mind or intellect is compared to the driver. The buddhi or the intellect is a driver who makes all the decisions. If we compare our body with a chariot, then intellect is in the place of the charioteer or driver. The mind, the emotional or impulsive faculty is in the place of the reins. The organs of perception are in the place of horses. So this is a chariot given to us. That intellect is the one that drives the chariot. If the intellect has the right perception, it makes the right choices, and our chariot reaches the destination. On the other hand, if the intellect is under pressure of rajas and tamas, of greed and lust and craving and the jealousies, it keeps on making wrong decisions, and therefore our chariot goes in opposite direction. Two paths are there. Duramete viparite vishuchi avidyaya cha vidyeti jnata. Says in Kathopanishad, says Yamaraja Nachiketa, hey Nachiketa, there are these two paths in the life, path of ignorance and path of knowledge. Path of viveka, discrimination, path of aviveka, non-discrimination. Intelligent path, unintelligent path. What is important is we make intelligent decisions. Then our chariot is on the right track and reaches the destination. Therefore, an important aspect of spiritual life is to be constantly striving to purify our mind, to make our mind predominant in sattva. Tamas and rajas should be slowly removed because they are intruders. Sattva is the nature of the mind. Tranquility, cheerfulness, placidity is the nature of the mind. This greed, craving, they are not the nature of mind. They are intruders because of ignorance, because of unintelligent choices. Therefore, with right attitudes and right values, we'll be able to drive out these inner enemies and make our mind composed and tranquil and happy. So tamas must be overcome by rajas, and rajas must be overcome by sattva. Then you have to grow out of sattva as a final step. What does tamas do? Aprakasho pravrittischa. When tamas is predominant, there is no pravritti, there is no motivation at all, there is no interest in anything. Swamiji, I don't like to do anything. Even that fellow is not interested even in moving. Nothing I am interested, Swamiji. Tamas. The mind has no motivation, no incentive. Even if it give it the temptation, that mind has no incentive. I don't want it. Hey, come on, do this, I'll give $1 million. I don't want to do it. I'm not interested in $1 million, it will say. Arjuna says to Lord Krishna, Nakangshe Vijayam Krishna, Nacha Rajyam Sukhanicha. He Krishna, I do not want victory, I do not want kingdom, I do not want means of happiness. What does it mean? It means that his mind has become disinterested. Tamas. Therefore he says, Nayotshe, O Lord, I will not fight this battle. Apravritti. Apravritti means lack of activity. So Lord Krishna says, Karma jayokya karmanah sharirayatra pichate na prasiddhet akarmanah niyatam kuru karmatvam. Here Arjuna, may you perform your duty. So first step is to perform duty. What is duty? What we are required to do, what we are obliged to do. Human being has many obligations. Today somebody said, Swamiji, debt and tax, these are realities of life in America. Debt and tax. Tax may be debt, D-E-B-T, debt. That's called runam in Sanskrit. Vedas say that we are born with this runa, meaning we are indebted to the whole universe, because of which we are what we are. We are what we are on account of what the universe does, meaning the universe is constantly contributing to our life. Various elements of the universe, which includes our parents and ancestors, which includes our teachers and sages, which includes the different forces of nature and devatas or gods, which includes other members of society, which includes even the trees and plants and creatures, all this living life, sentient and insentient, whatever universe is around us, is constantly contributing to our life. So Vedas draw our attention to that and say that it becomes your duty to return the favor. I won't do it. If you don't do it, you'll go to hell. Tair dattana pradayebhya yo bhunkte steneva saha. Lord Krishna says that the fellow who takes advantage of all the contributions the world makes to him, simply keeps on consuming without returning the favor, stena, he is a thief. A thief stands, a moral thief stands to be punished. Therefore the scriptures say that you fail to do what you are required to do, you are incurring sin. Meaning that you are creating unhappiness or misery for yourself. The first step is do what you are required to do. So Vedas enjoin the daily and incidental obligatory duties, that's called duty or kartavya, vihita karma. So the tamas is overcome by showing him fear, because the incentive does not interest him. If you give him temptation, a tamasic fellow is not even attracted by temptation. I don't want, I'm not interested. Because he lost interest, he doesn't feel like doing anything. Let's take a movie, I don't want to go to a movie. How about ice cream? I'm not interested. If you don't do this, I'll give a whip, then he will do something. Meaning that only by the fear of punishment, a tamasic fellow is whipped into action by fear. Incentive does not work. Incentive works only with a rajasic mind. Wants more and more. Tamasic mind, even incentive does not work. Only fear works. Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, if you remain inactive, then even your body also will not continue, because you will stop receiving the contribution of the world. The rule is that you receive what you give out. If you do not give out anything, you stop receiving also. I don't want it, then you do this. So tamas is overcome by rajas. Rajas in the form of duty. What is duty? Something that I must do. If I do not do that, I am subject to being punished. So he does. So thus, a tamasic person is slowly turned into a rajasic person by action. Now slowly his rajas comes out. His greed, his desires, his craving, all of this come out. So he performs actions all right. Become an active person. But what drives him to action? His greed drives him to action. His cravings drive him to action. All of these only create misery or sorrow for him. Here, tamas creates sorrow later. Rajas creates sorrow right now. So now, how to transform to sattva? A person predominant rajas is a consumer. We discussed all this during the question and answer session. Consumer, he wants more and more and more, not satisfied with what he gets. That is called greed. When a person is not satisfied with what he gets and what he enjoys, he wants more. As children also will tell our mother, Mom, don't make this savory for one day. We want it for 3 days. You are making samosa not for one day. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow. Making laddu for 4 days. So you fellows, you're never satisfied with anything. No? You give us, you want more and more. So this consumer, what does Gita now say to us? Yajñāthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanah tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangas samachara. Now Lord Krishna teaches the spirit of contribution, spirit of selfless action. A Rajasic fellow will perform actions all right, but always self-centered actions. Always for personal agenda. To satisfy his cravings, to satisfy his greed, he performs action. So we tell him, look, this is a binding action. Understand that when you are driven by your greed, when you are driven by your cravings, you are driven by your desires, self-centered desires, then you are only the greed, and all these binding factors only become stronger and stronger, and understand that you become more and more dependent, and that is how you create unhappiness for yourself. You make him see that. So you perform action in such a manner that the action creates happiness for you. What is the point in doing so many actions and creating unhappiness for yourself? It is not the action that creates happiness or unhappiness, it is the attitude and understanding behind the action that does it. So may the action remain the same, but let the attitude change. Formerly with Rajas, the attitude was one of consumer. Now transform him into being a contributor. Instead of a grabber, become a giver. From Rajas to Sattva. Rajas, self-centered action. Sattva, selfless action. Rajas, actions are offered to the ego. Sattva, actions are offered to Ishvara. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. Lord Krishna says, worshipping Ishvara by one's own action, one attains perfection. So then, Karma Yoga. Performing karma, the duties, with the attitude of yoga, attitude of being contributor, attitude of being a worshipper, attitude of being a devotee of Ishvara, worshipping Ishvara. So who is the karma yogi? One whose life is of worshipping Ishvara. Even his day-to-day actions also, he transforms them as worship simply by changing his attitude. Yat karosi, yat asnasi, yat juhosi, dadasi yat tapassasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Hey kaunteya, yajna, dana, tapaha, whatever action you perform, eating, drinking, whatever you do, remember me. Sarveshu kaleshu mamunasman. Remember me all the time, and remember to offer the action to me. You perform your actions to please me rather than please the ego. That's how the mind becomes sattvic. And then of course, now comes how to transcend sattva? By knowing, by knowledge. So now the thing changes. Now this person who was so far leading a life of action changes now to being a person who lives a life of contemplation. The Bhagavad Gita teaches the spiritual journey in 2 stages. Jnana yogena sankhyanam, karma yogena yoginam. The first stage of spiritual growth is karma yoga. Second stage is jnana yoga. First is life of action. Second is life of contemplation. How do you do that? So Lord Krishna says, May you know how to do that? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshandi te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Arjuna, now you have become a seeker of knowledge. Because we say jnana sangena. When mind becomes sattvic, automatically all priorities change. We don't have to make an effort. As a mind undergoes transformation, the nature of desires, the nature of priorities, all of this automatically change. In the sattvic mind now, there is a value for knowledge. Ishvara becomes important to him, not ego. For Rajas, ego is important. For sattvic person, Ishvara is important. His Shraddha, Bhakti, all this automatically arises in a sattvic mind. The desire for knowledge arises in a sattvic mind. Here, Arjuna, now that you want to gain the knowledge, go to a teacher. Prostrate to him, surrender to him. Serve the teacher. Please the teacher. Win over his heart. When you find that he is pleased with you, then you pray for knowledge. Please teach me. And the teacher will definitely impart the knowledge to you. It's by knowledge that we recognize that I am not even sattva, I am the witness of sattva, which will now come. So, next we will just read one more verse in between, the verse number 10, and then go to the Jnana Yoga. On the page number 12, Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha madhye tishtanti rajasaha jaghanya guna vrittisthaha vrittasthaha adho gachanti tamasaha. So those who are predominant sattva always go up, meaning that you rise in your spiritual pursuit. Or if you die with a mind which is predominant sattva, you gain higher birth in the higher embodiments. But if you are not interested in embodiments, then you keep on rising in your spiritual growth. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. The people who die with Rajoguna is predominant are born in middle as human beings. Adho gachanti tamasaha. And those who are predominant tamas, when they die, they go to the lower embodiments. So human embodiment is in the center. The Rajas, Kindara, Gandharva, Devatas, all these are called the higher embodiments. And then there are the animals and birds and plants, these are the lower embodiments. Sattvic, Rajas and Tamas. Okay, that's for general information. Now that one person has become Sattvic, has gone to the teacher, and now teacher imparts knowledge to him. So what's the nature of knowledge of this person now? The next verse 11 describes that. So, how does the wise person see his own self? Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram yada drashtanupashyate गुणेभ्यश्च परं वेत्ति मद्भावं सोऽधिगच्छति. न अन्यं गुणेभ्यः कर्तारं यदा द्रष्टा अनुपश्यति. Yada when drashta, the seer, Anupashyati, he sees. Na anupashyati, does not see. Gunebhyah anyam kartaram. Now, who is the wise person? Who is this man of knowledge? One who recognizes that all the three gunas, sattvam, rajas and tamah, all the three gunas, they make up my personality. They make up my costume. We said yesterday, and therefore also, what is creation? When the self, the limitless self, puts on a limited costume for living the life in this world. This costume, the body-mind-sense complex, is a costume. It can be also described as made up of sattva, rajas and tamas. So just as an actor puts on a costume, such as a king, such as a beggar, such as a minister, just as an actor plays variety of roles, so also the self plays variety of roles with the help of the costume of the body-mind-sense complex. We've been saying since last 3 evenings that what we call I is a complex entity. The ego is a complex entity. The ego is made up of two elements or two entities. One is the self, other is the non-self. Sometimes called Purusha and Prakriti, person and personality, or spirit and matter, consciousness and matter. We have been taking both of them as one. Not realizing that they are two, we take them as one. In Vedanta, they give the example of a red hot iron ball. This you must have listened to in the past in these lectures. Imagine an iron ball which is black in color and cold to touch. That's the nature of iron. Place that iron ball in the furnace, gets heated and becomes red hot. That red hot iron ball is called fireball. Looks like one entity to an uninitiated person. You think this is fireball which burns. But the fireball is the union of two entities, iron and fire. However, the iron and fire are so mutually identified that you cannot distinguish them. Where the iron is, there the fire is. The fire pervades every grain or every atom of iron. So you cannot say, here is fire and here is iron. So physical separation may not take place. But separation can take place in your mind. When you know the characteristics of iron and characteristics of fire, when you know that the fire is red and formless, and iron is cold and round, then when you see that fireball, then you realize that the round form belongs to what? To iron. The red color belongs to fire. So that's separation. That's called separation. Separation takes place in the mind. That is called separation by knowledge. Without having to physically separate iron and fire. If you know the characteristics of fire, that fire is formless and red in color, then you know that the red color belongs to fire. And when we know that the iron has a form, then we know that the round form belongs to the fire. See what happens because of mutual identification. The fire is identified with the iron, and iron is identified with the fire. Therefore, the iron, as though takes upon itself the quality of fire, and fire as though takes upon itself the qualities of iron. So now that fire looks round, is it not so? What is fire? Fire is formless. But fire looks round because of its association with iron. So form which belongs to iron, as though fire has acquired it. The iron looks red. Red is color of fire. Iron is hot. Heat also belongs to fire. So the heat and the red color which belong to fire are as though acquired by iron. The round form which belongs to iron is as though acquired by fire. This mutual identification makes them appear as one entity where in fact there are two. Something similar is happening with our own self. There are two entities, the consciousness, the self, and the non-self. What is non-self? The body, mind, sense complex is a non-self. And consciousness. Imagine consciousness is like fire, and the body, mind, sense complex is like iron. This body, mind, sense complex is insentient by nature. It is a form, it is limited and insentient by nature. The consciousness is formless, limitless, and consciousness by nature. Both, that is a mutual identification with both of them. Therefore, just as the iron seems to acquire the quality of fire, so also the body, mind, sense complex as though acquires the quality of consciousness. So this body, mind, sense complex becomes sentient, lively. The life of sentience is only due to consciousness. But the body appears conscious, mind appears conscious, and therefore we take them to be the self. And consciousness, which is formless and limitless, appears having form and limitation. The form belongs to the body, mind, sense complex. The limitation also belongs to body, mind, sense complex. The consciousness, the self, in association with this non-self, as though acquired the limitation of non-self. Therefore, the Atma, the self, the consciousness, feels like it is a limited entity, and the body, sense, mind complex feels like it is conscious or sentient entity. Thus, there is this lumping together. So, what is required is to separate them. You cannot physically separate them. The separation has to take place in the mind. We should know the characteristics of Atma as that Atma is consciousness, formless, limitless, illuminator, subject. Anatma, the body, mind, sense complex, is limited, is inert, is object, illumined. Self-illuminator, non-self illumined. Self-subject, non-self object. Self-consciousness, non-self inert. Self-limitless, non-self limited. So now in our mind we will separate them. Therefore, as we said, all actions are performed by the body, mind, sense complex in the presence of consciousness. The hearing takes place at the level of organ of hearing. The speaking takes place at the level of the organ of speech. in presence of consciousness. Consciousness does not perform any action. Atma does not perform any action. All actions take place in the presence of Atma. Just as electricity does not perform any action, all the motion of the fan take place in the presence of electricity. The glowing of the bulb also takes place in the presence of electricity. Understand that. Electricity is. What is glowing is bulb. But because bulb and electricity are mutually identified, therefore we do not see the distinction between the two. But when we know what the nature of electricity is, then we know that electricity is in presence of electricity. The motor becomes what? Energized and starts rotating, and that's how the fan rotates. Electricity does not rotate, the fan rotates. Similarly, in the presence of self, all the sense organs of action, sense organs of perception, mind, all of these are enlivened and perform their respective activities. Mind starts thinking, feeling in the presence of consciousness. Organs of action start acting in the presence of consciousness. Organs of perception start perceiving in the presence of consciousness. Organs of perception made of sattva. Organs of action made of rajas. The body made of tamas. All actions are performed by the body, mind, sense complex, by sattva, rajas, tamas, by the three gunas. Whereas, what is self? In presence of self, the consciousness, the gunas become enlivened and perform different actions. So who is the wise person? Wise person is the one who separates in his mind the self and the non-self. He realizes that the self is I, the consciousness, the actionless, the very presence, and what is non-self? The body, mind, sense complex made up of sattva, rajas and tamas. So all actions are performed by the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva, the mind and organs of perception. Rajas, the prana and the organs of action. Tamas, the body. So mind, sense organs and body, they all perform various actions. Actions perform at level of body, level of speech, level of mind, good, bad, indifferent. All actions are performed at level of personality, level of costume, which is made of sattva, rajas and tamas in presence of the self. So wise person says, I don't perform any actions. All actions are performed by the three gunas. Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram yada drashtanu pashyati. Drashta means the seer, the wise person. When he sees that all the actions are performed by the three gunas, by the mind, by the sense organs, by the body. Gunebhyasya param veti, then who are you? Gunebhyasya param, I am the one that is above the guna, who transcends the gunas, who is the illuminator of the guna, who is the witness of the gunas. I am the witness of the mind, I am the witness of sense organs, witness of the body. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am the sense organs. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham nacha shrotra jikhve nacha ghrana netre nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayuhu chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. Mana, buddhi, ahankara, chittam, these all different modes of mind I am not. I am this here. I am aware of them. Is it not so that we are aware of our mind? Are we not aware of the different thoughts in the mind? Are we not aware that mind is thinking, mind is happy, mind is unhappy? Are we not aware of that? Usually we identify with the mind. When the mind is happy, I say I am happy. Mind is unhappy, I say I am unhappy. But if we become alert, then we realize that I am aware of the various thoughts of the mind. That happiness is thought that belongs to the mind. I am the knower of the happy thought. I am the knower of the unhappy thought. I am the knower of the action, knower of the speech, knower of everything. I am the witness. I am the knower. I am the drashta. So, gunebhyasya param veti. These gunas, the personality does not touch me at all. Is it not so that when that actor puts on the costume of beggar, really the costume does not touch him at all, does not affect him at all, is it not so? Does the actor become a beggar by putting on the costume of beggar? Does the actor become beggar? Does he become beggar? If he became beggar, would he ever perform that role? If by putting on the costume of beggar, the actor really became beggar, nobody want to touch that role. In fact, in our Gurukulam, during our family retreats, when the children present the cultural program at the end of the week, they present variety of plays. Children say, I don't want to play this. I don't want to become beggar. I don't want to become a servant. He thinks that by playing the role of he'll become servant. No. In fact, it is possible that the one who plays the role of servant may get a first prize. Better than even the one who plays the role of a king. Because the role does not in any way affect the one who plays the role. By identification, we become limited. Otherwise, in reality, the role does not touch me at all. And that's the reason why an actor can afford to play any role. Ask him to become beggar, give me $10 million or whatever their price is. I don't know what the price is. 10 million sounds too small. Even the sports fellows get that. 35 million, 40 million. He must be getting, I don't know what. These Hollywood actors must be getting tens of millions of dollars, isn't it? I'm not in touch with it right now, so I don't know. You want to play a role of beggar? Yes, $50 million. You know, he'll become much richer than what he is by playing a role of beggar. How otherwise you pay it? Because beggar does not. So when he's playing the role of beggar, you know what he thinks? The begging is done by the role. Who am I? I am the one who transcends the beggar, who is unaffected by the beggar. In my presence, the begging takes place. I don't beg. Look at the beggar. As far as the audience is concerned, the fellow is begging. As far as he is concerned, you know what? He is begging and still not begging. From his standpoint, what he knows, who am I? I am a wealthy person. Begging takes place at the level of role. I am unconnected with the role. Beggar is the role. I am the actor playing the role. Act is always different from the role, unaffected by the role, because it transcends the role, if you want to use that word. Actor transcends the role, unaffected by the role. So far the fellow was identified with the costume, so he thought I was a beggar, he was crying. Now he is given the illuminate knowledge, hey, you are a wealthy person, you are not a beggar. When he realizes that, what does he say? All begging takes place at the level of costume. Who am I? I am just the witness. Unaffected by the costume, unaffected by the beggar. He is liberated. Because of stupidity, he was bound. Because of now intelligence, he is liberated. What is stupidity? Identifying with his costume. This is called de-identification. But the de-identification requires creating a distance. So let us look at the next verse. Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava न द्वेष्टि संप्रवृत्तानि न निवृत्तानि कांक्षति. See, we can do all of these verses are very beautiful to help us in our own meditation, in our own contemplation. The wise person again is described. The thoughts are taking place in the mind of a wise person as the thoughts take place in our mind also. Although his mind is an illumined mind, but still, sometimes tamas arises in his mind also. He feels sleepy also. Is not? He also sleeps. Sometimes tamas arises. Sometimes activity, rajas arises. He's hungry, okay, he wants food or something like that. Rajas may arise. Mostly sattva will be there. Meaning that even the mind of the wise person also is made up of sattva, rajas and tamas, just as our mind is made up of three gunas. The only difference is that whereas in our mind, I should not include you, but generally speaking, there is predominance of rajas and tamas. The difference is, for the wise person, there is predominance of sattva. How did he do that? By undergoing a process of transformation that we just described earlier. How you deliberately transform the tamas into sattva and into rajas and rajas into sattva. You have to do that. Because otherwise you cannot create a distance. It is easy to say that I am not the body. But that word that sentence becomes meaningful to whom? To the one who can create a distance with the body. I am not the mind. Saying is one thing. But that statement becomes meaningful when you can create a distance with your mind. It is true that you are not the mind. You are the actor. The mind is the costume. You are not the mind. But because of ignorance and rajas and tamas, we have become one with the mind. So just as while watching the movie, I sympathetically react to what is happening in the movie, similarly, normally I sympathetically react to my mind. When mind is happy, I say, I am happy. Mind is unhappy, I am unhappy. What is happy? Mind is happy. Like this person comes to our Swamiji, says, Swamiji, please help me. My mind is restless. No, sorry, I am restless. Please help me. So Swamiji says, you are not restless, you are silence. Swamiji, I am restless. So Swamiji was teasing him, you are all silence. I am restless. You are all silence. That fellow becomes so restless that Swamiji thought that if you go further, then I will also become restless. And therefore, Swamiji did not continue that teasing further and asked him, how do you say you are restless? I know I am restless. How do you know that you are restless? My mind is restless. That is exactly the point. Your mind is restless. Who are you? You are the knower of the restless mind. Is it not? How do you know you are restless? We know I am restless, I am happy, I am unhappy, I am sad. We know. If we pay attention, then we know. Usually we do not, because usually we identify the mind. When mind becomes sad, I become sad. Understand that always the freedom to claim my status of the actor, of the witness. That sadness also belongs to the mind, does not belong to me. I am aware of the sadness. I am the knower of sadness. But it is difficult to say when the mind is sad. I am telling you, it's easy to say, but difficult to say. Therefore, we must make our mind sattvic. So, wise person's mind is predominantly sattvic. Sometimes a rajas thought may come, sometimes a tamas thought may come. So, imagine that in the wise person's mind also, prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava. Prakasham is illumination, is sattvic thought. Pravrittim cha activity, rajas thought. Moha delusion, tamas thought. So in the mind of the wise person also, these thoughts parade. What is his status? He is the one who watches the parade. That's the only difference. He has created a distance with the mind. He has owned up that distance is always there. He has owned up that distance. That's all. And therefore, he is an uninvolved witness of the mind. Na dveshti sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshate. See, we in fact react to our own thoughts. Certain thoughts we like, we get attached to them. Certain thoughts we hate, we have aversion for them. Meaning that we relate to our mind also with attachment and aversion. So, very nice thought came, Swami, I am happy. Swami, very bad thought came, I am very unhappy. Thought is bad. Why are you unhappy? Because I become the thought habitually. You don't have to. You can claim your status as the witness of the thought. So here, about the wise person is said, Nadveshti sampravrittani. Sometimes what we call undesirable thoughts arise in the mind. A rajasic thought arises in the mind. A tamasic thought arises in the mind. We don't like that thought. Hey, come on, get away from my mind. Some thoughts we like, we wish that those thoughts should remain, not go away. In our life also, there are some people whom we like, they should remain, not go away. There are some people better go away. So here is this lady, and her father visits her every year, every year. When she receives letter from the father visiting, her tension starts. Boy, father, my Swamiji, father is coming. Maybe he's a terror, whatever. And so with the very idea of the father, creates in her mind a lot of stress. As long as the person is there, she is in stress. What does she want? Please go away. In her mind, not outwardly. So there are some people who come, wish that they should go away. They should not come. If they come, I wish they go away. Because aversion for those things and aversion, then the thought of that person also I will aversion. If I do not like the person, even thought of the person I don't get out of my mind. If I like another person, even thought of that person also I like. So in my life, these are the things. There are certain things which I wish they should come to my life and stay with me. Others should not come or get away from me. There is usually a relationship. There may be others to whom we are indifferent, but this is the primary. Though we relate to the world this way. Please don't go away, stay with me, or get out of here. One of the two. Attachment and aversion. That is the way we relate to the world. And therefore, that is the way we relate to our thoughts also, because our thoughts reflect our world. But what is wise? Who is wise person? He relates, as we said, what is vairagya? A healthy way of relationship. He does not relate with raga, dvesha, attachment and aversion. No attachment, no aversion. Therefore, agate swagatam kuryat comes, you are welcome. Gachantam na nivarayat goes, you are welcome. He welcomes everything. And it is further explained. Na dveshi sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshati. When these thoughts come, he does not have any aversion for them. Thoughts go away, he doesn't say, thought don't go away, remain with me, no attachment. He thought, why have you come? Why don't you go away? No aversion. Meaning that he is also objective with reference to his thought. That is further explained in the next verse. Let us read that verse. Udasinavadasinah Gunairio na vichalyate Guna vartanta ityeva Yovatishtati nengate. Says gunaha vartante. All of this is a play of the gunas. Understand that the whole universe is made of prakriti, which is sattva, rajas and tamas. So universe in front of me is the product of sattva, rajas, tamas. My own body-mind complex also is the product of sattva, rajas, tamas. My mind also is the product of sattva, rajas, tamas. Who am I? I am the witness of these three gunas. As much as I am witness of the world outside the body, so much as I am witness of my own body, and I am witness of my own mind also. As far as a wise person is concerned, he is drashta, everything is drishyam. So whatever I am aware of is called drishya object, and the one who is aware is called subject-object relationship. So, what is world? Sattva, rajas, tamas. What's the body? Sattva, rajas, tamas. What's the mind? Sattva, rajas, tamas. Therefore, gunaha vartante. Who performs the activities? What is an action? What is an action? For example, I am speaking and you are hearing. My organ of speech interacting with your organ of hearing is what is going on right now. Although because of ignorance I say that I am speaking, and because of ignorance you may think that you are hearing, but who really speaks is my organ of speech. Who hears is your organ of hearing. That's what it is. Your organ of hearing, sattva, rajas, tamas. My organ of speech, sattva. Speech is primarily rajas. Organ of hearing, sattva. So this guna interacting with that guna. All activities only take place at the level of guna. So my personality, sattva, rajas, tamas, and the world, sattva, rajas, tamas. All interactions take place at the level of the gunas. What's my status? I am the conscious that blesses the gunas. In presence of whom the gunas become enlivened and perform their activities. So gunaha vartante, he says that it is gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas that perform all activities. Who am I? I am the witness of the gunas. I am the subject. They are the object. Where witness is untouched by what is witnessed. Subject is untouched by the object. The actor is untouched by the costume. The bulb is untouched by the forms here. The illuminator is untouched by the illumined. You follow? Illumined are colors. Light doesn't become color. Light is that which illumines all colors, but light does not become colored. These colors do not affect the light. The illuminator does not become affected or influenced by what is illumined. Subject is Atma is illuminator. object, the three gunas are illumined. Therefore, udasina vadasina. When I watch the movie, I become identified with the movie and start feeling what's going on there. But a real fellow who watches movie, he's just watching, he's just a witness of the movie. Is it not so? See, when these people who are called the judge, when judges go to watch the movie, to evaluate the movie, they are just objective people. Then only they can properly assess the nature, the quality of acting, everything they can assess, provided they do not take any side at all. They are totally objective. Udasina vadasi, udasina, one who does not, who is totally objective, who does not have any raga or dvesha, meaning that who does not take anybody's side, who has no axe to grind, who is totally unaffected, is called a witness, a prekshaka, an audience or witness. So just as we are a witness to a movie, so also for a wise person, the mind is a movie. The various gunas come, dance before him. The world is a movie of three gunas. The whole universe is what? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. They present variety of plays. Who is he? Simply a witness of them. What kind of witness? The one who is not affected by what is witnessed. That alone is called witness, who is not affected by what is witnessed. Otherwise you can't call him witness. Udasina vadasina. What is his relationship? He is totally objective, meaning free from raga and dvesha, attachment or aversion. He is no partiality, no cruelty. Gunairyo vichalyate. Just as this person watching the movie is unaffected by the moods of the movie, na vichalyate. An ignorant person becomes affected. When my favorite actor becomes happy, I become happy. When he becomes happy, I become unhappy. Meaning I am affected. Vichalyate, I am deviated from my own nature. The real witness is the one who abides in his nature. Whatever happens is very clear. I am not that. I am unconnected with that. I am unaffected by that. Meaning that nothing affects my fullness. He abides in his limitlessness, in his fullness. And what happens out there does not in any way affect his fullness. Just the fullness of the ocean is not affected by any waves or any kind of storms that take place. And so also the wise person remains unaffected, meaning abiding in his own nature of wholeness and fullness. Naingate, he does not get deviated from his nature, he always abides in his nature. It's called swastha, swe atmani tishtati, abiding in himself. So you can now assume the role of a witness. You can say this. What's the world outside? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Who are you? The witness of the three. What's your body, mind, sense complex? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Who are you? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivo, Name Dvesharago, Name Lobha Moho, Mado Naiva, Me Naiva, Matsarya Bhava. The Dvesha, Raga, attachment, aversion, I am not. They are not mine. Nalobha Moho, the greed and delusion also don't belong to me. Madoniya, even the pride and jealousy also do not belong to me. They all belong to the mind. Na punyam, na papam, na saukyam, na dukkham. The punya, the papa, the virtue and vice also belong to mind. Saukyam, dukkham, happiness, unhappiness, all belong to three gunas. Name mrityu shanka, name jati bheda. There is no birth and death that belong to the body. This is how the wise person who has now reclaimed status of witness, which is his true nature anyway. But because of ignorance, because of identification, as though he had lost his status. By knowledge, by the distance created by knowledge, he regains his status and abides in his true nature. And regardless of what happens out there, he is not distracted from his nature. Therefore, alright, this is what is happening inside him. Swamiji, how does he relate to the world? This is what is happening inside. We don't know what's happening inside him. How do we recognize a wise person from his behavior? That's what we can see. What Lord Krishna described in the verses 12 and 13 is what is within the wise person. Meaning that we are not witness to what is inside him. But then what is inside in that wisdom? How does it reflect itself in his relating to the world? So that's what the next verse tells us. Manapamanayostulyaha tulyo mitrari pakshayoho sarvarambha parityagi gunatitasya uchyate. The last sentence is Gunatitasya uchyate. He's called Gunatita. Atita, the one who has transcended the gunas. Understand that we are already transcendent. We don't have to transcend anything. Actor automatically transcends his costume because the costume does not in any way affect him. We said yesterday that actor is Satyam, the beggar is Mithya. Actor is Adhishthanam, the beggar is superimposition. Is it not so? Actor is changeless, beggar is changing. Actor independent, beggar is dependent. Therefore, the beggar of the costume never affects the actor. Actor always transcends the costume. Only because of identification, he thought that he was as good as the costume. All he has done is to reclaim the status. Gunatita suchate. He's called Gunatita. He's the one who has transcended the gunas or transcended the three qualities. In his mind now, not identified with any guna. And therefore, how does he respond to the world? Mana apamanayostulyaha. Manam, honor. Apamana, dishonor. See, the world treats the wise person in the same way that the world treats us. Whether you are wise or otherwise, you have to confront the world. And world is what it is. Don't think that Lord Krishna also was spared all these apamana. He also had enough insults. Lord Krishna also even lost his battle. He was insulted number of times. Meaning that Lord Krishna also went through the same thing that you and I go through. Only what is inside him is different from what is inside ourselves. That's what makes all the difference. Mana, apamana. Mana means what? Honor. Apamana, dishonor. So, sometimes you are honored. Sometimes people praise you by their words. Sometimes by their body language you know that the person honors you. Sometimes people insult you by the words or by their behavior. That's what happens to everybody. When I am honored, I jump with joy. When I am dishonored, I become depressed. Honor makes me elated. Dishonor makes me depressed. So my mind swings from elation to depression, elation to depression. It is never steady. It is never tranquil. it does not enjoy true happiness. A samsari is a person whose mind swings from, like pendulum, from one to the other. Elation, depression. Elation, harsha, shoka. Harsha, shoka. No. Mana, when is honored, no harsha, no elation. He is insulted, no shoka, no depression. Swami, how is that? Is he insensitive? He is thick-skinned? There are political leaders are all like this. They actually satisfy this description, Nothing happens to them, really. You praise them or you insult them, do whatever you want. Nothing. That's called thick-skinned. The wise person is not a thick-skinned person. He is a very transparent-skinned person. But except that, he has transcended all of this, meaning that he is no more identified. That's the thing. He knows, please tell me, who is honored? Suppose you honor this Swami, what do? You bring flowers for him, bring gifts for him. Sometimes you wash his feet, isn't it? You bring flowers for whom? For the person that the Swami is, isn't it so? When you wash feet, is the body whose feet you are washing. Meaning that gunaha vartante, understand that all transactions take place at the level of personalities, at the level of costumes. In a play or the drama also, all transactions, interactions take place at the level of costume. Somebody plays a role of a beggar, somebody plays a role of a king, somebody plays a role of a minister, and when they talk to each other, who talks to each other? One costume talks to the other costume. Is it not so? If they talk to each other, that's in green room, that would be a different talk. On the stage, who talks with whom? One costume talking to other costume. Is it not so? One role talking to other role. One costume, the gunas interact with other guna. That's the vyavahara. Is it not on the other stage? Only when the actor is identified with the role, then he thinks that I am a beggar and he has insulted me. But if he is really has owned up the status of an actor, then he knows insult only touches here. It doesn't go beyond the insult to the beggar in a play does not go beyond his costume. Is it not so? If it goes here, he'll give a punch. Doesn't go anywhere. It remains at the costume. So somebody may praise him. Because they sing these beggars in India, in Indian movies, beggars always sing beautiful songs. Bhajans they sing, So if you want to listen to a bhajan in a movie, it must be basically more or less sung by a beggar. So people may praise him. Who is praised? The role is praised. The role is insulted. The one who insults also is role. One who is insulted also is role. Is it not so? One who gives also is role. The giver, data, the charitable person, one is given also is a role. All the transactions in the play take place at the level of role. All gunaha, guneshu vartante. Guna means roles, interact with the roles. It's only ignorant people, they think that all things are done to me. But then, in the play, the beggar is insulted. Does he feel insult? He may show in his mind, does it touch him? He knows that insult only stops at the costume. Manam, honor also stops at the costume. Because he is very clear about the distance of separation between the costume and the actor, the role in the actor. So wise person also is very clear about the distance between the costume and the actor. He knows all the vyavahara that people praise goes up to costume. He does not feel, I am praised. What does he say? The costume is praised. In his mind, outwardly he may say anything. In his mind, what does he say? The costume is praised. Costume is insulted. Costume is, so mitra ari pakshayo. Mitra means a friend. Ari means an enemy. In play, the friend also is a role, enemy also is a role. Therefore, an actor knows this fellow is only a role. Enemy also is a role. He is equal to them. In his mind, he may act. With a friend, he may act in a friendly way. With an enemy, he may act in an enemy way. But in his mind, he knows both of them are actors only, and therefore both of them are the same to him. Is it not so? That's it. The wise person knows this is all play. I am playing the roles, everybody plays the roles. All transactions and interactions take place only at the level of the roles. Since he is not identified the roles, he is unconnected to the role, he is truly objective and therefore unaffected by whatever kind of things are done to him. Meaning that he remains established in his true nature, which is wholeness or completeness, not deviated. Sarvarambha parityagi, one is given up all actions, meaning that he needs to do no action. Formerly, when he thought he was a beggar, he needed to perform action to become a rich person. But now he realizes, I am already rich. No action needed to become rich. No action needed to become successful. Whatever is to be accomplished by action, happiness, success, is already accomplished because that's the nature of self. There was Sarvarama Parityagi, who has given up all actions to become something. Gunatita Suchate, he is Gunatita, he is the one who has transcended all the gunas. And Lord Krishna says, how do you become Gunatita? That verse tells, next verse tells us, how can we become Gunatita? So let us read the next verse. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Lord Krishna says, Mom, and Lord Krishna says, me, so the one who worships me. Lord Krishna says, one who worships me with unswerving faith. So when Lord Krishna says, me, what does he mean? One who worships me, what does he mean? When Lord Krishna uses the pronoun I, what is the meaning of that pronoun? People interpret differently. A follower of ISKCON will say, Lord Krishna says, Lord Krishna, Supreme Godhead, and therefore in Bhagavad Gita he says, worship me, Krishna. That I is equated to Krishna. Okay, that's one interpretation. Some other teachers will say, I means Narayana. Vedanta says, I means Param Brahma. So you can progress. Start with Krishna, Narayana, Param Brahma. That also is okay. But the ultimate meaning of I is what? Param Brahma, the limitless. The limitless wholeness, which is the nature of the self. The limitless self. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Lord Krishna says, Mam sevate, one who worships me. Bhakti yogena, by the yoga of bhakti, by the yoga of devotion. Avyabhicharena, by unswerving, no vyabhichara. Vibhichara means what? Unfaithful. Vibhichara. Avyavichara being faithful. Lord Krishna says, one is faithful to me. See, we are also all worshippers, all right. We also become worshippers of Lord at 6:30 in the morning, half an hour in the morning, and half an hour in the evening, perhaps. So in the morning, the spirit of devotion arises. And then I put my Bhagavan there in the room and I close, lock, the puja and then go and then spend the day. In the evening, if I have time, I come back, open that again, close it in half an hour. Spurts of devotion. I'm what a part-time devotee. Because Swamiji, I cannot afford to be a full-time devotee. I have to go to work. Who will feed my family? Who will do this? And who will take care of my bank account? Who will take my insurance? Who will take my future? Meaning that I am a devotee of millions of things right now. Many things are important to me. My family also is important. My job also is important. My career is important. Swamiji, my prestige is important. My name and fame is important. My success is important. We are devotees of those things which are important to us. So right now we are devotees of many things. When I come home, become devotee of my family. Go to work, become devotee of my career. Go to gym, become devotee of my body. Go to temple, become devotee of that devata. What is important keeps on changing, and therefore my devotion also keeps on changing. I am not a faithful devotee. I am an unfaithful devotee, isn't it? Lord Krishna says, Avyavicharena Bhakti Yogena. The one who worships me, unswerving devotion, meaning that one who is only faithful to me, in whose life there is nobody other than me. That's what we like, isn't it? Husband and wife also keep track of each other. They sometimes they get their passwords and then see the internet, the mail, emails and stuff like that. What is he writing to? Who did you call? Who called you? Who was that? How come you are late? Where did you go? We want to make sure that the person is faithful to me. Isn't it? We like that. We don't like unfaithful people. God, Bhagavan also says, become faithful. He also likes faithful devotees. Avyavicharena. Lord Krishna says, when I alone become important to you, when nothing else remains important to you, when you realize that through all devotions you are really seeking only one thing, when that viveka comes that what I am seeking in life is one thing, the please the self. That's all I am seeking. The devotion behind all the devotions is for the please the self, for Atma, for Satchidanand, for Param Brahma. That's what I am seeking in my life. Let me recognize that. That my love for everything else is because of love of the self. Atmastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Let me recognize this. That I love many things, all right, but then my love for everything is conditional love. As long as they love me, I love them. When they stop loving me, I also give up. I love you, I love you, I love you. I allow you, I allow you, I allow. This is nothing but simply love, all of convenience. This is too crude a statement, and it sounds very cruel, but ultimately that is what we are. And therefore, even most intimate relations also can break up. Not that they should. It's a wrong thing that they do, but they do. When they recognize that he is not faithful to me, he doesn't care for me, he doesn't love me, or she doesn't do that. Lord Krishna says that realize that The love behind all love is for the self, meaning for Satchidananda self, not this idiotic self. I'm not talking about ego. The real thing that we love, even when we love ego, then also it is love for Satchidananda. We love ego. If we really look at that love, we'll realize that through that also there is love for Satchidananda, limitless self. So this is called Viveka. To recognize what it is that I am seeking in my life, I'll realize that all that I want is Satchit Ananda, the limitless self. So when all the devotion and love from everywhere else converges into the love for one, Mam chayo vivicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Lord Krishna says, one who only wants me and nothing else. And when you want him, then you do whatever you do for the sake of him. Meaning that what you do, because when the destination is clear, then we make all choices which take us to destination. When you leave your home for coming to this place, there are many choices, isn't it? So many highways are there, and so many exits are there, so many entries are there. Which one do you take? That which takes you to your destination. There is only single pointed devotion, what? To the destination. In that case, there is vairagya for everything else. Not this 283, not this, not that 280, not this, something this is crowded. So, our devotion is very clear to the destination, the roads which take us to destination. Whether slow or fast, crowded or not crowded, smooth or potholes, whatever they are. What is important is when I am committed to my destination, then all the choices are made accordingly. That's called devotion, meaning that I turn my mind away from everything else, GPS, destination, and the road which takes me to destination. If Ishvara becomes a destination, that what choices I make are all made for that, meaning that I become indifferent to everything else. Only thing that counts to me is what my destination is, and that is Satchit Ananda, Param Brahma, the very self. Abhyabhicharena, then I know that the self is to be known, and therefore my devotion comes for the knowledge. I know that the knowledge can take place provided my mind becomes sattvic. I become devotee of sattvic mind. You see how? Basically I am devotee of what? Param Brahma, Satchidananda self. For I know that self is to be known, therefore I become devotee of knowledge. But I realize that knowledge can take place provided I listen to scripture, Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, I become devotee of that. But I realize that proper Shravanam can take place provided my mind enjoys the tranquility and purity, so I become devotee of that mind. I realize that it is amanitvam, adambitvam, the humility, the lack of pretentiousness, the non-violence, truth, these values create that mind. I become devotee of those values. I realize that become a contributor that provides that mind, not a consumer, become a devotee of it. See how that devotion completely transforms my life. So the devotion of Ishvara is reflected at all stages. Abhyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Lord Krishna says, one who becomes my devotee, he does something that is also for me, does not do something also for me, acquires something for me, gets rid of something for me. That's called devotion. If you want to go to Kailas, Mansarovar, Swami, you are planning to go this July, Kailas Mansarovar. You start planning 6 months in advance. And everything, first of all you start with a vacation, start with whatever else you need to do. Then prepare yourself, what kind of clothes you will require. Then you start walking, climbing, preparing yourself for the trip. You do that, is it not so? Because Kailas Mansarovar. Why are you jogging in the morning? Kailas Mansarovar. Why are you fasting? Kailas Mansarovar. Why are you taking vacation? Kailas Mansarovar. Why do you travel all the way to, to Nepal? Kailas Mansarovar. Why do you undergo all these, strenuous effort? Kailas Mansarovar. In everything that I do, one thing, when destination is clear, everything gets directed to that. Mam chayo vyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate. This one who worships me with unswerving devotion, committed to me. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. This is called Vyavasayatmika buddhi. The buddhi in Vyavasaya, the conviction has taken place. So gunan samadhi, he transcends his gunas. First transcends tamas, then rajas, then sattva, and by knowledge even transcends the sattva also. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate, becomes one with me, recognizes his true nature as Param Brahma. So that is the means, bhakti is presented as the means, which is what we discuss all these days. So this is a knowledge that Lord Krishna, in the first verse, Lord Krishna praised the knowledge. Param vayah pravakshami jnananam jnanamuttamam param jnanam, the ultimate knowledge. Jnananam uttamam jnanam, the most exalted among all forms of knowledge. Yajñātva munayas sarve param siddhimito gataha, knowing which the contemplative one achieved the ultimate success. That jnanam is this jnanam. So this is a jnanam, a knowledge that Lord Krishna praised, so that there is a value for this knowledge. That this is the most valuable thing in my life. And this is the first thing that we understand. What is valuable in my life? What do I want in my life? What is my agenda? What's the most valuable? And slowly, our mind comes off the wrong values given to other things and becomes more and more committed to that until we become the unswerving devotees of the Lord. So with that, we conclude our discussion on the 14th chapter. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.